Well, hello, 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 Remote Work Europe people, and particular shout out to people in Remote Work Spain. Thanks ever so much for tuning into this webinar. I know we've got a lot of people from Spain coming, but I know we've also got people who are Spain curious, and that's why the subject of today's webinar is all about the visa. How to come here, how to bring your freelance work with you. So we'd love to hear in the comments, actually, if you just drop in where you're tuning in from, it would be great to get a sense of who's watching. And apparently we're not live on X anymore because we don't have a premium account. Well, sorry, Elon, no chance am I giving you that. So we're not live on X. That's just too bad, I'm afraid. We're live on our website, we're live on YouTube, we're live on our Facebook page, so that will simply have to do. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce Catherine Rodriguez from Entre Tramites. She is their immigration expert, and I'm going to be handing over to her to take it away. She's got some great slides to share with you. We will go through the presentation, and then if you have questions, please drop them in the comments thread. So, Cristina de Chile, it's great. We've got somebody watching from the other side of the Atlantic already in an early morning. So I hope we're going to clear up your pathway to make it over to Europe if that's what you want. And from the US, great. Hi, Stacey. Lovely to have you with us. And I'm going to shut up talking now and hand over to Catherine.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you all for the space. Well, as Maya said, my name is Catherine Rodriguez. I'm one of the immigration lawyer for Entre Tramites. I have also personally been an expat. I was born in the United States, and I came as an immigrant here to Spain to study. So not only do I have professional experience, I definitely have personal experience. So hopefully we'll clear out a few of your questions today, especially about the Digital Nomad Visa. So let's start with the basics. What is the Digital Nomad Visa? It applies to professionals that want to work remotely from Spain from an extended period of time. This visa was introduced in 2021 in response to the new form of work that emerged during the pandemic, and it still continues to be an attractive option today in 2024. This visa aims to attract qualified professionals who can carry out their work activities throughout the internet. So it's going to provide benefit for both the individuals and, of course, the Spanish economy. What are the benefits that you receive at it? Is you're going to be a legal resident in Spain for an extended period of time. You're going to have the freedom to work remotely while exploring the country. You have access to the Schengen areas, and you have access to a high-quality healthcare system with an adequate healthcare insurance coverage. This, especially as an American, was definitely something that's attractive to me. A good healthcare system with very low pay for it. So who can benefit for us? Employed workers. If you work for a company abroad, you can have a digital nomad visa. It does have a little bit of problematic and caveats, which I'll talk a little bit after about this. But the easiest pathways is the self-employed worker. So the self-employed worker, you're going to provide service to clients all over the world. One thing about this is that when we mean clients, at least one of them has to be a company, has to be an SL, an SA, it has to be a registered company outside of Spain. And it's outside of Spain, meaning if it's France, for example, where the company is, we have no problem with that, but it has to be outside of Spain. This is also good for people who want to start gaining market in Spain, because it does allow you to work for Spanish companies or has Spanish clients, but very important, it cannot exceed 20% of your total income. So if your plan is to use this visa as a way to get into Spain and then move forward in Spain and open up more revenue avenues, you have to be very careful about how you plan it and when you plan to change your visas. Okay, so let's talk about employed workers. These are the persons who have a normal contract with a company. It's just that company permits them to work for anywhere in the world. You have to have the application form, an administrative fee of $73.26, because as you will see here, for everything that you do in Spain, you're going to pay an administrative fee. For a business operation, so the company has to have been working for at least 1 year. You have to prove your employment relationship with them for at least 3 months. Your employment contract has to be of at least 1 more year. And they have to certify that you can work remotely from Spain. How do they do this? Just a simple letter on their letterhead stating, I am the employer of X, and we allow him to work from Spain. That's basically it. And proof of professional competency, there's two ways to do this. The way that I prefer to always do this is with a graduate or postgraduate degree from any university. It is usually the easiest way and the path of least resistance. But if you don't have a university degree, you can always prove 3 years of experience. But very important about this 3 years of experience is not letters of recommendation. Basically, you have to have the contract with the companies that state from when to when that you start working, and you also have to have provide income, so proof of income from that company, so that they see that you were actually working during that time for the company. Okay. Next, you need criminal record, proof of agreement with the social security or registration in Spain, which I'm going to come back to this one. Have sufficient resources, which the applicants must present 200% of the SIM. So that's the minimum salary in Spain. So in this case, it's going to be 30,000. For a second relative, it's going to be 11,340 more. And then after that, for each family member, you have to add around 4,000 euros. Medical insurance, that's going to cover you in all of Spain. And of course, when you apply from Spain, you cannot be irregular in Spain, meaning you have to do it while you're a tourist here on your 90 days tourist visa, or you have to do it from your country of origin. So let's go back to the social security and registration in Spain and why this usually brings problems. So before you even think of applying for as an employee, this is not a freelancer, but as an employee, the company has to register in Spain for the purposes of social security. Just for that purpose. It doesn't mean that let's say company, well, I was going to say X, but considering what they just did to you, Maya, maybe let's not name them. But let's say company Y in the United States, they're like, fine, you can go. But that company Y is going to have to register in Spain so that they pay directly your social security. That means they have to register in Spain, and they also have to have a bank account in Spain. This is usually where problems usually start, which is when we try to pass you to a digital nomad as a freelancer or as a pack. Well, actually, it's just the pack, which we'll talk to about later. Okay, this is for self-employed workers. So as you can see, basically the documents are all the same. The only difference is that your income must not be more than 20% from Spain. We prove that with contracts. You have to prove professional relationship with a client abroad, and one of them at least has to be a company in that. So remember that it's just not a client. It has to be an SL, an SA, a company. And the rest are pretty much the same. Now, why is this easier compared to the autonomous, to the employee in terms of self-employed workers for the digital nomad? The company doesn't have to apply here for social security. What the company does is basically what you do is you apply as a reta after your permit has been approved. So you apply for the reta, and that means you're going to have to be paying for the first year at least 89 euros a month for the pleasure of working here in Spain. And after that, depending on how much income you make, you're going to be paying between 250 to up to 600 every month. So the other problem with this, because this is the easy part, this you'd say like, fine, I'll pay it. You also have to pay IVA or VAT every 3 months, because basically when you work here in Spain as a freelancer, you also are one of the people who has to recaudar, basically get the VAT for the company, so for the government. So every 3 months, you're gonna have to also declare this. And if all of this wasn't enough, most of you have probably already heard about the Beckham's Law. If you're a self-employed worker with the Digital Nomad Visa, you're not allowed to apply for the Beckham's Law. You can do it if you're an employed worker, but then you, with a normal contract, but then you have to convince your company to actually register here as a social for the Social Security. But if you're self-employed, you cannot apply for the Beckham's Law. But we do have a workaround on that. So other relevant information about the digital nomad in general is where you want to apply for it. You can do it in the consulate on the country of origin, or here at Unidad de Grandes Empresas. We always recommend, if you have still the tourist time, do it directly from Spain for two reasons. You're going to be able to do it kind of faster because everything is done online, so you don't have to wait for appointments. Everything is done online. You receive the application, the resolution online also, and you move on to the DA. Most of the time, it takes around 20 days. And second, the permit, unless you have um, a social security agreement with your country, the permit is going to be for 3 years. If you have a social security agreement for the country, so for example, the one that the UK has, they tell you that they are going to cover the social security for 2 years. So then that's what is commonly known as the A1. So then the government here in Spain is going to give you that visa, that permit for 2 years. Doesn't mean you cannot renew it. You can renew it. It just means that not everybody's always going to get the 3 years. But if you're still going to get more time than if you do it throughout the consulate. So resolution time, if you do it from here in Spain, is just the 20 days, 20 working days. If you do it from the consulate of origin, it's usually 30 days. It is just a 10-day difference, so it's not that much. But the important part is how long you have it. For the consulate, as I said, is 1 year. From here in Spain, is 3 years. Okay. As I said, you won't be able to apply for the Beckham's Law with the Digital Nomad Visa as a self-employed. So please, please make sure that you talk to a financial expert. We have those in Entre Trámites, and to an immigration expert, which we also have those in Entre Trámites, to make sure that you are very sure about the steps that you're going to be making, because taxes here in Spain are usually very high compared to other places. So it's better to have an actual idea of what you're going to be paying here. Okay, so what is the difference between the self-employed and the employed? As I said, the self-employed, you register with the RETA, that's the Autónomos, self-employed freelancer. With the employed, you're registering for the Social Security. And remember, not only do you register, your company also has to register. And they have to register before you apply. So with the RETA, you pay the Social Security with the RETA. With the employee Social Security, the company is going to be paying around 47%, if I remember correctly, on top of your salary to cover your Social Security. So you have to count that also, your salary in terms of what you cost the company is going to go up. Okay, with the self-employed, you are responsible for managing your own taxes, including the VAT and the income tax. With the employed, the employer handles the income tax withholdings and makes the necessary payments. That's why they have to have a bank account here. And usually, what's the most important one? Self-employed, no option for Beckham's Law. Employed, options for a Beckham's Law. Okay, so what happens if you know that you don't want to have your company have to do all this work, because it is extra work, but you also want to be able to have Beckham's Law. Now, this is again where I say, if you're going to take this option that I'm going to tell to you about right now, which is the highly qualified worker, I do recommend making use of our pre-consultation. And depending of what your situation is, they're going to maybe ask you to move on to a paid consultation. We have mixed paid consultations, which are with myself or one of the other lawyers, and a financial expert, that in that call, we work out if the highly qualified worker actually is workable for you. Because it's not workable for everyone. But what is a highly qualified worker? So the highly qualified, it was created to attract talent and promote the country's economy. So if you have a residency from outside, if you are from outside of Spain, you can come here to have a highly qualified worker. Now, how does this work with people who what they want is the digital nomad? Well, how this works is you've got to have an employer of record. There are a lot of employer of records in Spain that are valid. They're basically, you're going to contract them for them to contract you in name of your company. They're going to be the ones that make your contract. They're going to be the ones that are, when Spain asks, they're going to be your employers, and they're going to be the ones that pay the Social Security for you. So they basically lend you out to your company that you're usually working for. so that you continue to work with the company, but you are not a digital nomad. What you are is a highly qualified worker working with an employer of record. So let's make an example of this. I myself work for Entre Trámites, but let's say that Entre Trámites is not actually a company here in Spain. It's a company that's based in Portugal. And obviously, I need a visa to be able to come here. I want to be able to apply for the digital nomad and have the Beckham's law. But if I apply as a freelancer so that my company doesn't have to register here and pay more, what can I do? I would have to either lose the Beckham's law, which means I would have to pay probably more taxes, or I could get another company to hire me. So I get a company, there's a few around, Deal Remote, for example, where they hire you and then you lend your services to Entre Trámites. So when Spain asks, in the records, this company, this employer of record, is the one that has contract me, is the one that has my contract, is the one that pays my salary, and is the one that pays the social security into Spain. So I am a normal employed person. That means I can get the Beckham's law. But that also means that my company doesn't have to register to the social security system, because who's going to pay the social security system is going to be that employer of record. This obviously has extra costs because you do have to pay this employer of record. So it's not worth for everyone, but it is worth for some people. So when you're gonna check if this is worth for you, I'm gonna give you a little tips after, so that you can have a better idea if it is or isn't. But if you think is an option that is worth for you, very important to use our consultations, because what we want here is for you to be able to have access to everything that you need and not for you to be paying extra. Okay, so what are the original requirements? You have to have a degree from a recognized university or 3 years of experience, not be irregular in Spanish soil, be over 18, lack a criminal record, not appear as the rejectable territories in Spain, have public insurance or private health insurance, and have sufficient economic resources. As you can see, most of the requirements are the same as the Digital Nomad Visa, so in that, it's not going to be a problem. Where do you apply? Same as with the Digital Nomad Visa, either through the consulate or through the UG. Maximum is, again, the 20 days resolution, and 3 years of validity. If you ask for it from the UG, if you ask for it from a consulate, it's the 1 year. Okay. So how do you become a PAC? Use AOR, an employer of records. You have to make sure that they are authorized contracts in Spain, so that they are already a company here in Spain. You contact them before you apply for the PAC, because you have to make sure that the contract is correct, that they meet all the requirements, and that you have time to do this. And then you apply for the PAC with that contract instead of with the Digital Nomad Visa contract. Okay. So what is the process of the Social Security? There are bilateral agreements between all of these countries. There are a few or more. So basically, if your country has an agreement with the Social Security, you fill out the TA 300 form, you add the corresponding data from your country, you have to have your worker's digital certificate, and you make an online application. And if your country doesn't have an agreement, it's harder. Always is harder. You have to have a NIA request, which you're going to have to get before. So you have to do that through the consulate or have a legal representative in Spain that does it. You have your company registered here. So that means that you're going to have to need a power of attorney for both the company and yourself. You're going to have to get a digital certificate as a worker. You're going to have to get a NIF application, which is basically the NIE, but for the company. And then once you have all of that, you apply for the company registration. This, with time, it usually takes around a month and a half to 2 months, because all of this process takes time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the Beckham's Law. The Beckham's Law is a tax legislation in Spain that is established a special regimen. So in Spain, this regimen that you have goes from 19% to 47%. and it is progressive. So depending on how much money you make, it's going to be that little chunk that is going to be the 19th, then the 20th, etc., until you get to the 27th. What happens with Beckham? Well, when David Beckham wanted to come to work to the Real Madrid, he really didn't want to pay enough taxes, and the Real Madrid really, really wanted him here. So they created this kind of special law, which is funny because now football players cannot access Beckham's law. So, but what they did is they created this law that means that the money that you make while here in Spain is going to be taxed at 20% all around. Your wealth tax, so any money that you make from outside, is exempt, and you have 6 years of this benefit. The requirements is you cannot be a resident for the past year in Spain. Also, this is very common. They think that Spanish people, nationals, cannot apply to the Beckham's law. They actually can, as long as they haven't been a resident in Spain for 5 years. The reason for transfer has to be an employment contract, a digital nomad as a contract, not as a freelancer, an entrepreneur, a company director, or an investor, and the family of someone that is moving up to 25 years of age in case of children. Okay, so should you use the Beckham's law or not? So this is the first steps that you're going to ask yourself to see if the highly professional visa is actually worth for you. If you receive income about 53,000 euros, you should try to get the Beckham's law. If you have high earnings growth, you should try to get the Beckham's law. Or you have overseas assets, today my English, earning over 10,000, you should try to get the Beckham's law. So if you have one of those three, try to get the highly professional visa so that you can get the Beckham's law, or get the Digital Nomad Visa as an employee, not as a freelancer. If you don't meet any of these three, then you can go to the normal digital visa as a freelancer, because the Beckham's law is probably not going to be worth for you in this case. Okay, so are there any questions?
Please put your questions directly into the comments, and I have a number of questions that have already come in, Catherine, including people who are going to have to watch this later because they're fast asleep now. And I have a couple of things that have emerged for me as we've gone along. I'm glad that although this webinar was about freelancers and the Digital Nomad Visa, it's really important to talk about that complex interaction between the highly qualified visa, the employee visa, and because we really strongly recommend that everybody, basically, you need to figure out what's going to be the best approach for you. And we strongly recommend that you do have a consultation with Entretramiters to try and figure that out, because it's not like you're likely to get rejected, but frankly, you'll end up paying more tax if you go the wrong way. And we don't all have Beckham's financial advisors on our side. So, you really need to hire these people who know what they're doing and can help you navigate through all of that. So one question that occurred to me just while we were watching, and I know that you're probably going to hate being put on the spot, there's no such thing as an average, but if you're caught between that, do I look at the PAC route or the Digital Nomad Visa route? Is there a threshold kind of income you should have in mind?
The 53,000, yeah, it's usually the threshold that my financial experts do advise that is the threshold that you have to look at as a general rule. But as you said, this is not actually, because if you make 40, but you have a lot of wealth outside, a lot of passive income outside of Spain, it's still probably going to be good for you.
Yeah, because that's what Beckham was really trying to hide, wasn't it? It was his other assets and the wealth taxes, not just what he expected to earn from Real Madrid. So yeah, you've got to look at your whole picture. That's why you need the consultation. Be a Beckham, don't be a Shakira. Okay.
Exactly.
You mentioned also that there might be a decision to be made of, do I go down the route of being an employee seconded to Spain through a visa, or do I approach it as a contractor? Now, we have the issue in Spain sometimes that people are found to be working as a falso autónomo, and they're really, that because of the terms of how they work and the work that they do, they should be treated as an employee. Now, does this comes up from time to time? Is there any risk that you could be considered a falso autonomo if you're contracting full time as a freelancer to an entity outside of Spain?
Yes, so you actually should be an employee. So, sorry, a freelancer in this case. It shouldn't be what we consider like falso autonomo here, because that law still applies to you even though you're working for an entity. So it has to be that you actually are a freelancer. If you
Okay,
are
that's good.
a normal employee, it does bring those risks.
Okay, we've had one more question in about what happens. This is going to the 20% income maximum from within Spain. What if you are working as a freelancer for a multinational that has entities in different countries, and say you have a contract with the US branch of this global entity? They do also have a branch in Spain. Is it okay for you to get income from the US branch? Does that count as outside of Spain income for the purposes of the visa?
Yes. So this, for example, happens with a lot of multinationals like Amazon, Apple, just to name one of the big ones that we all know. So if your contract is with the one outside, that's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be a problem.
Right.
But you
Good.
cannot move your contract to the one in Spain.
Then it would go into that 20%.
Exactly.
It would probably drop to that anyway, because the American one probably pays you more. Stay with that. Stay with that contract and don't break it. Okay. We've got a couple of questions coming in on the chat. This is about the Social Security certification.
Okay, AI for the UK. What's the corresponding certificate for the US? Let me ask my financial advisor right now. But in general rules, if you look for certificate of coverage, that is the correct certificate of coverage, is the correct name for every country, and then they have like a mini name, like the UK has for A1, the US, if I remember correctly, is the S1, but I'm gonna check on that. But yeah, certificate of coverage.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, Mark has also remarked that these certificates are not easy to get, and I know that we've had that from the UK as well.
And even if you get it, like for example, the US is giving a lot of problems, even if you get it, does not mean that here the administration is going to accept it. So you also have that to think.
Yes, and these are often temporary solutions. You know, the US or the UK doesn't want to be paying Spanish Social Security indefinitely. They might see it very much as a transition for you. We've got a question here from Christina, which again, I've seen some different examples of this, of people kind of managing to get a bit of flexibility. What's your experience, Catherine?
You can get flexibility on that. So you can add, if your income doesn't meet the threshold, you can add savings. However, it should be a minimum. What we recommend, because sadly there is not a law set, which is how we like to work, with something that specifically that says it has to be 25, it has to be 50. There is not a number set. So we always recommend that the savings that you're adding is less than 25%. If you're adding, you can add savings. It may be that depending on the situation, they let you go a little bit higher on the savings, but our general recommendation is 25 or less.
Right. Okay. Because otherwise they'd probably say you should be looking at the non-lucrative visa or something if it's, you're living from your savings. That's an interesting one. A supplementary question that came up in the chat a while ago was, now we've got people, because this visa is still quite new, but it's been in existence a while, people are coming up to the renewal point. And what happens then in terms of, do they reassess all your income again? The minimum wage in Spain has increased, which is a good thing, but it also means the threshold income requirement for the visa for self-employed people, we know our income is all over the place anyway. What happens at renewal in terms of assessing your income?
So they're going to reassess it again, and this time they're going to take the threshold that they have right now, which is at the very least the 30,000, and you have to be able to use that one. You also have to be with a company, so you can't be in this time be, oh, I don't have to prove the contract. You still have to prove a contract. Doesn't have to be the same company, doesn't have to be, but you have to be able to prove that you're working for someone. It's going to be for 2 years this time. And after that, if you still continued in Spain, you can change from that visa to a long-term visa, which does provide more flexibility. But for this first renewal, you're definitely going to have to be able to prove the new threshold of money.
Okay, because it's an experimental thing then, isn't it? You've come over to try and make a go of it living in Spain. And I suppose there is a certain sense that it's still a bit experimental from Spain's part as well, because it's
Mhm.
new. So that does make a certain amount of sense. And it's only recently, I suppose, that we've even been processing renewals because
Mhm. Yeah,
it's
it
fairly
started in
new. But is it?
2021. So
Yeah.
basically, most of them you from the in the beginning, the consulate wasn't willing this, so most of them were given for 2-3 years. So it is definitely something new, the renewals. So we
Right.
finally know how to do the initial ones perfectly, and now we have to see how we can do the renewals perfectly.
They like to keep you on your toes for sure. Okay, we've got a question for a UAE business. How will that work?
Okay, so okay. Well, first of all, this is
Complicated.
where I
Get a,
yeah.
get a consultation. I know the answer to this one.
Exactly. This is where I say one of the consultations where our financial experts, usually Gabriela, one of our experts, says to me after this because I do send her a lot of people. Because, yeah, it is a case by case basis. So, as in general, if you're the director of the company, you will, if you don't have the Beckham's law, you will be taxed on everything that you make here and outside. So we definitely, in this case, we would definitely have to try to get you as under the Beckham's law, which means you would have
Mm.
to be here as an employee of the Digital Nomad Visa or as a highly qualified worker. The good things is we're usually when you're the directors of the company, you can register your own company here for social security purposes. You don't have that problem.
Yeah,
But
and it's also going to depend on the substance of that company and all sorts of it. Definitely get a full tax consultation on that, particularly if you're the only director.
exactly.
Um, that could get very complicated. Don't get it wrong. And yeah, there will be ways to try and protect income that's not touching Spain, but you might need to appoint another director or keep an office in the UAE or something like that. But that's why Gabriela and Louis are there
Mhm,
to
exactly.
figure this stuff out. Okay, another one, related one, possibly. What happens if you are a sole trader?
Oh, this we usually the ones that we've done, we have had to do it through a pack because with sole traders, it's very difficult to be able to prove the contract. So the problem of the contract of being hired for for a company, even if you're a freelancer or not. So we find the path of least resistance, which is usually what we're trying to look for. The path of least resistance is through a highly qualified visa.
Mm.
This you also have to see it from the point of view of the Spanish administration and the people who work in the Spanish administration. They were given certain rules. That is what you have to do, and that is supposedly what you cannot deviate from. So, in case of sole trader, we have the problem with how the contracts are made, that they're not actually contracts. So we don't meet that requirement. And if we don't meet that
Mm.
requirement, it usually has to be through a highly qualified visa.
I suppose the only other route you could go, and if you were making long range plans, is to form a limited company.
Mhm.
But then you're looking at, is it a year that company has to be trading before you can pay yourself a salary from it and qualify as an employee of that company?
That is correct. So it's you're gonna have to be waiting at least a year because the company also has to be able to have lived for a year.
Mm-hmm. So you can't do this just quickly to switch from being a sole trader to
Mhm.
being working for your own company. You could do it if you plan ahead. You could form a company in Estonia, for example, or in the UK, somewhere where it's quick and easy to form a business, which it isn't in Spain.
That's true.
You could go down that route and then pay yourself a salary that meets that requirement, but it's going to take you a year. Okay. Oh, this is a follow-up question from Deborah. She has contracts with all her clients. Is that going to work to prove the income, do you think?
No, it doesn't work because I'm guessing when you say clients, you mean one person. So it's you don't have contracts with a company. So one of the requirements is the contract has to be with a company, NSL and SA. So it can't just be people. So usually that is where the problem.
Okay,
You
but if
said
she
with
has,
businesses.
yeah, she has contracts with other businesses, even though she's not a limited company herself, would that work?
Yes, in that case, it might work. Do a free consultation with our immigration expert so that they can check it. But yes, if you have a contract with a business and one of them is able to give you the certificate of, oh my God, I just forgot. Oh my God, the certificate that proves that the company's been alive for a year.
Yes, that will
incorporation.
exist. Yes, that will exist in
Exactly.
every country. Yes.
Exactly. So the certificate of incorporation, etc. Then yes, you will have to do it, but basically because you have that contract with that business.
Yeah. So it's just proving the income, really, isn't it? I suppose when we think of it from the UGRE's point of view, they want to prove that that income is solid. You're not going to be a financial burden on Spain. You're not going to be taking jobs or income from Spanish freelancers. So it's got to be money coming in from overseas. So I suppose it's just a case of triangulating that, really. And now we're back to Mark in the US. So what do you do if you can't get that certificate of coverage?
So
How do
if
we
you
work
don't
around
can
that?
get a certificate of courage, you go through the normal route, which is a freelancer here in Spain. Because if you got the certificate of coverage, you don't have to pay the renta because basically the United States is going to cover the social security for you. If the United States is not going to do that, which in most cases it doesn't do that, you're going to have to go through the renta. That also means you're going to have to pay the 86 euros for the first year. And then after that, you're going to have to pay depending on how much income you go. And it goes higher and higher.
Yeah. It does, I'm afraid. But I suppose it's also worth it. I mean, it might be too early in your journey, but to think about, do I want to ultimately go for long-term permanent residency? Would I want to have a retirement income in Spain? Is it worth moving all of my medical stuff into the Spanish system and building up the record keeping there? These are complicated decisions when you're thinking, oh, do I just want to go and live in Spain for a year and see how it goes for me? But these are things that might weigh on your decision. So it is definitely worth having that chat with an advisor just to kind of look at your long range situation, really. Do we have any other questions coming in? We've got Christina in Chile paying taxes. So this is a double taxation question. This is an important thing to talk about.
Exactly, double taxation. So my general answer to this is always yes. Spain is going to make sure that you pay taxes here. They will figure out a way to do it. So then it comes in the double taxation. You have to say specifically what the regimen is between Chile and Spain, and then specifically on that you have to see if you fall under that, because there is a lot of law. Not everyone falls under it. So as a general rule, you will have to end up paying in Spain. What they do also as a general rule is they take the countries whose higher taxes it is, usually Spain. So that is the highest tax that you're going to have to pay. Let's say you are make a lot of money and you end up paying 46% here in Spain, just as an example. But in Chile, you pay 5%. What they're going to do is they're going to make you pay that 5% in Chile, and the rest you're going to be paid in Spain. But it may be that depending on the situation, you have to pay the 5% in Chile and then the whole 46% in Spain. So it always has to be checked by person, because they have to check what bilateral agreements they have and also what are the requirements for you to fall under that bilateral agreement. And
You need individual advice, really, with your whole situation for that one, don't you?
exactly. And base case scenario on this, which is what I always recommend, let's say you don't have to pay anything in Spain, you only have to pay everything in Chile. Keep your books very, very clear. Keep all of the information, because Spain at some point, and the administration, la agencia tributaria siempre viene. The tributary agency always comes, and they will come
And they can
they will
come
ask.
years later. They can come
Exactly.
for you. They can. Everything can be, and they'll come sort of the last day before the maximum fine. So yeah, if you do get a judgment, anything that says you don't have to pay something. In fact, any tax advice that you get, whether that's from Ente Trámites, whether it's directly from the tax office, from immigration, whatever, keep that documentation. Really, really strongly recommend that. And that has to be personalized advice given to you based on your circumstances and situation. It has to be from a professional like Ente Trámites, so that's indemnified. You can sue Ente Trámites if they advise you wrongly. You can't do that with something you read on Facebook or read in a
No.
blog.
And
It
also
has
you
to
can do
be
it with the
for you.
administration. So also
No,
remember, the
that's true.
administration does not work for you. They work
No.
for the administration. Make sure, and even if you're like, oh, this person, she looks nice, okay, go to the person next to it and see if they tell you exactly the same thing. And
Yeah, go
after
back
you've
the
gone
next
through all of
day and
it,
talk to someone else.
exactly.
But
Very
yeah, if you
true.
do get a judgment from them in writing, then file that too, so that you've got your paperwork in your corner if it ever comes up again. Because yeah, they're not out to get you, but they're out to get as much tax revenue as they possibly can.
It is
So
definitely
I'm
not
afraid, yeah,
personal. It's just
it's
they want someone.
it really is. And Spain have embraced a lot of change over the time that I've been here. It's become so much easier. I mean, we never heard of a digital nomad visa
Mm-hmm.
even like 4 or 5 years ago. This is all new. It's all a lot more digitized than it was. All of these decisions will be on your record. You can access them all with your digital certificate. Again, navigating this is complicated, and I lean heavily on my advisor at Entre Tramites if I've got something through the post I don't understand, or I've got an email and I can see there's correspondence in there. It's from the Tributaria, it's from the Hacienda. I can use Google Translate as well as anyone. My Spanish isn't bad now, but when it comes to legal Spanish or fiscal Spanish, I don't trust that I'm going to be able to interpret that correctly. So, I really appreciate having that advisor that I can quickly forward an email to and say, what the hell is this? And they say, don't worry, it's spam.
It is
No,
always good,
that's
especially
yeah.
when they tell you that when they inform you that, oh, there's gonna be someone who's gonna ask you for money, but it's fake, and you're like, okay, but is yours fake? It's not. Do I do this? So
Yes.
definitely, it's very good to be able to have all of that.
Yeah. And actually, this is a related question, the last one from Mark. And I mean, I can answer that. That definitely my advisor at Entre Tramites will deal directly through the system on my behalf if it's something that I don't understand. And so, would you need to use a notary as well?
So no, in most of the cases you don't need to use an order. We will let you know when you need to, but because there are certain things that you do have to, like and they're very specific. Like for example, if I need to get a NIE on your behalf, that is something that is very personal, so you do need to get a notary document from that so that I can get the NIE in your name. But from immigration, for applying for the visas, etc., since we have a special permit from the government, we don't need a notary for our lawyers. And from the side of fiscals, what we need is a document stating that you allow us to do this in your name. So it does not have to be a notarized document. If for whatever reason one of the lawyers that were on the fiscal area has to come in, they do ask you to sign another document but that's basically it's telling them, hey, yes, I allowed this person to represent me. But in most cases, you're not going to need a notary.
Great. Okay, so all you need is Entre Tramites, folks. Get in there because they really do. I mean, it is really useful to have that integrated service. That's one thing I found very frustrating in the old days coming to Spain. It's you go here for this piece of paper and there to that office, and that office won't talk to that one, and they won't give you the thing you need to. It all just makes your head explode. So it's good practice for Spain generally, and it is worth it once you get here, I promise you. But we just want to help you do this properly so it doesn't come back to bite you. We want to help you get this right from the start and make sure that you're compliant and legal and you're paying what you expect. You don't have any nasty surprises because, yes, this is a high tax environment. It's also a very good environment for benefits for your health, for your retirement and everything else. So then that costs money. So that's what you enjoy when you come here compared to paying for your healthcare in the US or anywhere else. So it's worth it, guys. And it's been really great to have so many questions coming in. Mark is asking, how does a representative get this permit? This is a little bit sort of in terms of how you work at Entre Tramites. That might be worth just digging into slightly.
So it will depend on who it is. So for example, I had to go to law school. Thankfully, not everybody needs to go to law school to get the permit. But I had to go to law school to get my permit, which does allow me to do more things than the rest. So in terms of fiscal, they don't really need to do a permit. They do need to be able to know what they're doing, because basically, if not, as Maya say, you can always come for a company if they don't do their things correctly. But so they don't need a permit per se. All they need is a document that we have models of this that templates that you basically fill out that gives us permission to act in your name in specific situations. Depending on what you contract us for, is gonna be one that covers more or one that covers less. But the ones that we have, like the lawyers have, that is fully, is just going to law school, doing a master's, and then taking the bar exam.
So no shortcuts, I'm afraid. And anybody who hasn't got those qualifications, run screaming for the hills. Don't let them make life-changing decisions on your behalf. So I think we've got some brilliant answers there. Catherine, I really appreciate your time, and everybody who's listened and joined in, who's taken part in this webinar. This, we could do this offline and just share it as a podcast or something, but what makes these events so special is having the interaction from all of you, from the community. So I'm really grateful for that. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew about our next webinar, which is happening next week. Completely different subject. We're looking at one of the businesses that is never going to get you a visa for anywhere. Isn't even going to get you any income to be taxed. More likely you'll be paying them. We've been digging into the murkier side of remote work and multi-level marketing and network marketing. We have a new book to launch. We have a gift discount to give away on that launch webinar. So please do come along and join us. That's the same time next week, next Thursday, the 19th. We'd love to see some of you there for a complete change of subject. And there's no more announcements, I don't think, from the Remote Work Europe side. We've got our new Slovenia group up and running. We've got a great newsletter coming for you tomorrow. The Virtual Excellence Academy free challenge is kicking off next week. You'll find links for that in all of your Facebook groups and in your newsletter tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for it, please do, because there are so many different ways to grow your remote career and qualify for your visa for Spain or anywhere else that you want to live. So we want to help you do that as many different ways as possible. Couple more comments coming in. We're really glad that you found it useful. Thanks ever so much, guys, for being part of this. And Catherine, thank you for your time, for your insight, for going for law school and being here today to help us. We really value our partnership with Entre Tramites and the advice and support you give to our members.
Thank you, Maya. I really do appreciate it. I know the company does as well this time, that you will give us to be able to share this information and be able to give a little bit of clarifying information. We know we sometimes Spain like it's bad. It's not. You just need to know how to look for it. And then after you have it done, it's going to be great. We have great food here.
Absolutely. We have the sunshine, we have the beaches, we have the tapas. So yeah, bring it on. We'll see you on the beach. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Catherine, and bye for now.
Thank you.